Consent is, so if you have consent, means that you have complete agreement and you're knowledgeable about what's going on.
When I hear the word, I think of sex. I think that's just naturally, especially being in high school and all that stuff, anything sexual in general, but it can even go outside of that.
Consent for me is like an absolute yes. It's either an absolute yes or an absolute no.
Consent to me looks like two people having a conversation and agreeing on the same thing. I don't think I've ever had a conversation with any adults in my life actually about what consent is. No one ever sat down with me and talked to me about consent. My entire opinion of it was completely shaped by what I've seen on the internet.
Has anyone ever sat down with me and talked about consent? No, actually. And that's surprising because both my parents are cops.
I don't even know if my parents have ever said the word consent.
I figured out about consent on my own research when I was researching part of the Me Too movement. I really researched and got to hear a lot of stories.
And then it was all over social media, all over the internet. Everyone was talking about it, completely went viral. I feel like that's where I first got into touch with like the official concept of consent.
The problem is when teens or kids don't go to their parents or adult figures is that there can be really skewed definitions or not very clear like what consent actually means.
Yes, my mom has sat down with me and told me what it was. It was a pretty good conversation. It did get a little awkward sometimes. It changed my perspective because I didn't think it was that big of an issue, but when we sat down and had the conversation, I realized it was something bigger than I thought it was before.
I went to Walmart alone and a guy followed me for 3 aisles, made a joke about my butt and walked away, and I was freaked out. My mom, when I first told her about the whole incident, she was like, oh, I'll take the compliment. And the next day I had a full breakdown and I was so scared to go anywhere alone. And I kind of told her, I was like, no, this is how I felt. I didn't feel complimented. I felt scared. I felt alone. I didn't want to be in a compromising situation like that.
I was in a situation where I was on a date and I felt a lot of pressure to give consent to something that I didn't want to. And it ended up where I was in a very dark situation. I ended up missing the last probably month of school because he was in my class and I didn't want to see him. And I didn't want to report it happening because I didn't want the backlash of it.
I don't think it's ever too late to talk about it.
I feel like adults should sit down with their kids and explain to them what consent is so that they have a better understanding and that there isn't bad situations that can come from not understanding what it is fully.
I feel like children should be taught at a young age about consent so that when they get into their older teenagers and maybe adult years that they know what consent is and they know if somebody is giving them consent or if they are signaling they do not want you to touch them in any way or,
I wish that he would have understood that consent, when it's forced, isn't actual consent. And if it feels like you're in a dangerous situation if you don't say yes, that's not actually consent.
On a Friday game day, we try to get there as early as we can so we can get near the front of the student section. The cheerleaders get us really hyped up, so it's really fun. It's always so fun. I was near the end of the bleachers, and one of my friends came up to me, and we've been friends since I've moved into this school. He said he was hungry and wanted to go get food. I was like, yeah, right, I'm not missing this game. I want to be back to see the football players after the game. we'll just go get food and we'll come right back. Like, whatever you want, I'm buying. I'm like, well, I'm broke, so you can take me to go get food. That sounds great. I told one of my friends that I was leaving, and I told him who I was leaving with. We got to the car, and we were driving around, and he's like, all right, where do you want to go? We pulled in to a fast food place just through the drive-thru. So he gets the food out of the window and says, okay, you don't get this until you make out with me. I thought he was just kidding. I didn't really respond. Didn't want to give him any reaction to it. I was like, just give me my food. I said that, just give me my food. He started driving through some back roads, and I told him I wanted to go back to the high school. He started talking more about how we should date, we should make out in high school because we've been meant to do it, so why not do it tonight while we're alone? I kept saying I wanted to go back to the high school. About a month and a half before this happened, I went to a class called The Meaning of Consent with my dad.
Let me share a specific example from my daughter.
It talked about what you need to say to get your point across, and I think it was just in my subconscious that that's what I needed to do.
The boy was showing her affection without her consent. This was alarming to her and alarming to me.
I finally persuaded him to head back towards the school, and we went to a four-way stop, and I assumed we were just going to the high school, but he ended up turning the other way into this neighborhood that I'm not familiar with. He went and parked behind an elementary school in the middle of this neighborhood. That's when I started to get sick, a bit scared. I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea what to say or what to do. Where is this? Where are we right now? Why aren't we back at the high school? He didn't say anything because right when he parked the car is when he decided he was gonna do what he wanted to. I felt powerless. I needed help. I was on my seat to the point where I could be as far away from him as I could. He lunged at me, and then he grabbed me. I pushed him off and said no. He tried again. I avoided that one a little bit better, but I still didn't avoid it completely. It's weird how fast your mind works in those kinds of situations. I stated my boundaries, and I specifically said no, just because of that class.
And she had the voice to say no. She understood consent.
I pulled out my phone and told him that my sister was texting me, but I was actually texting one of the friends that I was at the football game with. My friend, instead of coming to get me, just decided he would get the number of the guy I was with, and he called him and told him, you need to take Paige home now. That's when it kind of clicked in this guy's head. So I got out of the car, and I just went straight towards the back gate. I just felt like I needed to be in somewhere. So I just shut the gate, and I just dropped on the ground and cried. I felt guilt. I felt that I had put myself in that situation, and I felt that I didn't do everything I could to get out of it. I was also really nervous to talk to my parents about it because I knew I needed to, but I really didn't want to.
We weren't home when she came home, and she called. Emily said, "We need to go. Paige has been assaulted." And so we raced home, not knowing what we would find when we got home. Just the unknown. It was that fear of the unknown. When I saw her, I gave her a hug and just wanted to try to let her know it would be okay.
I was glad to see she was physically, say, unharmed, like she wasn't, hadn't been beat up or, any of that sort, but she was visibly shaken and literally shaking. You can be threatened, and it's about right here, and then your child can be threatened, and it's a whole new level.
she did everything right. And I could tell immediately that she felt that she had done things wrong and that she was to blame. And I wanted her to know instantly that that wasn't the case and that she did great things and it was going to be okay. Yeah, I'm not sure why I decided that night that I was going to go over there and talk to his parents. He's a teenager now and he's making smaller choices, but I don't know what he's going to grow up to be. It's important for me to help him. I'm hoping that his parents will have at least been able to chat with him and have those uncomfortable chats with him about the choices he's making and how he treats others, and women in particular.
It's been eye-opening because things just aren't stories you hear anymore. It's real.
My name is Paige, and this is my story. I'm using my voice to empower myself and to empower others my age.
Let's talk about consent. Okay.
And it's okay if you kind of look at me and then look back at the camera.
Okay. It's Matt. I'm a one-take wonder. So as a dad, I try to take two.
So,
my husband and I have a 14-year-old daughter and we have 10-year-old twin boys. And we have tried to have conversations with them about consent.
Do you know what the word consent means?
Kind of.
Our older kids, we've seen the benefits of them learning about consent, but our younger kids,
they're crazy.
And they're still trying to figure it out.
I had hit a point in my life where I realized I needed to teach them a little more about consent and safe touch and uncomfortable touch and no means no and stop means stop and everything like that.
So our youngest is a little crazy. She likes to climb.
And she's a Spitfire.
And she came out, climbed up on the stool, climbed up on the counter in the middle of the island and stood up. And I asked her to get down because I was worried about her getting hurt. And she responded to me, well, I don't have to because it's my body and I can do what I want to with my body. Yeah. So that one backfired.
There was a time not too long ago where I told you I wanted to do your hair for pictures. And how did it make you feel when I just told you I was going to do it and you didn't get a choice?
Dang it.
Any of you ever taken food off of your kids' plates without asking? Because I do that and they don't really like that. And I started to realize I'm taking something off their plate without their consent. I'm not asking them if I can have a bite.
We were in the middle of the grocery store and our youngest tried to give our oldest a hug. And our oldest yelled at the top of his lungs, "Uncomfortable touch!"
So you decided to post my AP test scores, and I really was uncomfortable with that.
Okay, no wait, I didn't actually post the actual score. To my defense, I didn't really do that. I said you passed.
Okay.
Have some younger kids, and I love to run, chase them around, wrestle them to the ground, tickle them. And a lot of times in those scenarios, your kids will put up with it for a little while, but then my kids at least, will start yelling, "Stop, stop, stop, I don't want to do it anymore." Those are probably some good small moments where I can demonstrate that as they express themselves and have a voice, I can honor those moments and I can stop.
Made me uncomfortable, first of all.
Why?
Because I get random people I don't even know who are just like, "Oh, way to go on your test, I'm so proud of you." Who are you?
So you feel like parents should always ask before they post?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's fair.
I think that helps communicate to them that they have a voice, and that carries on into other areas of their lives and helps them as they start to deal with bigger issues and bigger relationship situations.
Teaching consent's super important, super awesome, and pays off in the long run, but when they're little, it's probably going to backfire sometimes.
And it will be okay still.
And it will be okay.
She likes it a lot better when I ask her if I can have a bite.
Yeah, but food is still stolen off of my plate. But it's just with consent instead.